G'day, it's Farmer Jay and welcome back to Derriere Farms. In today's how-to video, I'm going to give you my top 10 tips to get you up and running as quickly as possible on your new farm. Now, this isn't a complete beginner's guide. I'm going to assume you already know how to do certain things, like attach the header to the combine, how to dump a trailer into the silo, how to put your header onto the header trailer, how to attach the cultivator, things like that. Where to sleep. And not covering any of that. I'm going to assume, like I said, you already know that. If you don't already know that, go back, and I'm going to link it. Go back and watch my complete beginner's guide because it covers everything from start to finish. But it is a lot longer than this video. And it walks the absolute beginner through the very basic steps. No shortcuts. We just use the equipment we have in the game and we go from there. Now, in today's video, I'm not going to use any mods either. And basically, I'm just going to give you pointers that if somebody came to me, or, as I often see in the forums, somebody says, help, I'm not making money, what do I do? These are the pointers I would give them. Tip number one is fairly obvious. Pick a map. Either Elm Creek or Obeilon. Avoid Erlengrat until you know how to farm. Because, well, Erlengrat deals with animals, and animals are far more complicated. Along the same line, I would say start on Obeilon. Elm Creek's beautiful, but I'll tell you why. If you look at the bottom right of the screen, it gives us the field info. The land area of the farm, this is the complete farm, the area highlighted in blue, is 6.4 acres. And as you can see, right above it, I have field info on, and it shows you what each of those fields are in terms of acres. So, these three fields total roughly 3 acres. On Obeilon, you start with just under 10 acres of land. So you've got roughly 3 times more land. Your first field is 3 times the size of this field. And you therefore harvest 3 times as much on your first go around. So here we are on Obeilon. And as you can see, this first field is 2.85, so it's almost 3 acres. Like I said, that's almost what you have total, or it is pretty much what you have total on Elm Creek. This field is 2.28 acres of harvestable land. And this one is 4.68. So you have quite a bit more land, as you can see, to start out with. I mean, this field alone is pretty much bigger than your starting farm on Elm Creek. In fact, I did the math. The 3 fields next to your farm on Elm Creek cost, I added them up, and it's roughly $160,000 or euros or whatever you're playing in to buy those fields to bring you up to the same size starting farm as you have on Obeilon. Like I said, I've started a farm on both. I wasn't in a rush. So I didn't mind the fact that I had to do more stuff and wait longer to be able to expand my farm. But like I said, this is a quick start to get you up and running as quickly as possible. Tip number 2, when picking either of the two maps, is to go into your settings and decide, well, first, make sure you're on easy difficulty, because if you're playing on medium or hard, you should already know how to play the game, and my tips you will already know and they will be useless. Seasonal growth is your choice. If you turn it off, and I recommend, if you want to get going quickly, turning off seasonal growth, that way you can plant one crop right after you harvest another. You don't have to wait till the springtime. So for the purposes of this, I'm going to turn seasonal growth off. We'll leave it at 1 day per month cycles. Fixed visual month, if you want permanent summer, leave that, turn that on. And I think we covered that before. I turn crop destruction off just to avoid mishaps, because you're starting out. You don't want to be backing up and accidentally destroy half your crop. Periodic plowing. Here's my bugbear. Turn that off, because you don't get a plow to start with. The 3 fields that you start with on both maps require plowing if you turn this feature on. And like I said, they don't provide you with a plow. None of the other fields on the maps require plowing unless they have had corn, sugar beet, sugar cane in them. When you get to that stage that you're harvesting corn or sugar cane or something like that, turn it back on to keep the realism going. But right now, when you're starting out, save buying a plow, don't do that. Like I said, I don't know why giants have the first 3 fields that have wheat and or barley in them that you need a plow for, when you don't need it for any other fields you purchase, unless, like I said, they've had corn in them. Field stones, personal bugbear of mine, I turn them off. Even in my advanced game, they were neat for the first 5 minutes, and then they got boring. Lime required is fairly realistic, and so are weeds. So I leave those turned on and would recommend you do. Now, AI workers, make sure all these settings are turned off. Otherwise, the AI workers will be purchasing seed or fertilizer, and they will be purchasing it, I think, at 1.5 times the cost of what you pay in the store. So that's tip number 2. And these tips are in no particular order, by the way. All right, so we're ready to start the farm. So I've started harvesting just to get things going. This is debatable. Some people will argue that you should not enable straw chopping, that you should bale the straw and sell it to make extra money. Well, right now you don't have a front loader, you don't have a baler, so that's extra cost. What you spend on those items, you will probably, spend even leasing those items, you will probably not make back in the value of the straw, as straw is worth very little. Next year, when you have all of these 3 fields, if you choose to put them into a crop like oats, wheat, or barley that gives straw, 3 fields makes more sense at that point. Now, speaking of of what we have and what we don't have, let's take stock of what equipment we do have and what we don't have. This will be my next tip. The farm comes with 2 medium tractors, a small tractor, a combine, a pickup truck, a trailer, obviously the header for the combine, small cultivator, small seeder, header trailer, and 2 weights. It also comes with a silage pit, a rundown hayloft, again that you probably don't need because you are not going to be renting or buying a baler yet at this point. You have better things to spend your money on. Tractors. You don't need 3 tractors. So we're going to decide which one of those to sell. I would recommend on this farm selling your smallest one. By having 2 medium tractors, and by medium they are not overly high horsepower, there are 170 and 190 horsepower. 170 for the Massey and 190 for the Valtra. So, I'm going to go ahead and sell the Steyr, the hayloft, the bunker, and we don't need a pickup truck right now. We can get them around the map on a tractor. So let me go ahead and do that, and then we will see. Well, I'll show you in case you don't know. Quick access to build mode is Shift P. So hit demolish instead of just the regular place mode. So hit demolish. We'll go ahead. There's 12,500 we didn't have before because we're not doing silage because we don't have animals. Although I do recommend silage is something you get into later, but that's entirely different. We'll sell the hayloft for 31,750, and the water tank we don't need that yet because there are places to get free water from. So I don't recommend you pay for water in the first place. Shed, do you want it? Do you not want it? I like to be slightly realistic, so I keep the shed. And it is only worth $5,000, so I'm not going to make a huge amount of money from it. Now, in terms of, I'll answer the question quickly, free water. When you do get to the point where you need water because you either get animals or wait on animals, greenhouses, this lake will give you free water. All you have to do is drive up to the side of it and fill your tanker. I have a video on that. If you want to go ahead and watch that, is how to get free water. So I'm also going to get rid of the Steyr. I want to check on the combine real quick and see how full it is. Okay, it's 59%. Right, so here we are at the shop. We've got the Steyr to sell and the pickup truck. I've seen some videos that recommend you also sell your combine and just lease one. But I'll show you why I personally think that's a bad idea, because the next 2 combines up are $265,000 and $285,000. And even if we lease the cheaper one, it is $14,000 to lease plus the header. So it's not a cheap lease. And your lease is based. Watch the video on leasing. but the lease is based on time used as well as the number of days you have it for. Since harvest doesn't always fall in the same month or the same day if you're playing on seasons turned off, you're going to need that combine for at least 3 days, so that's 20,000, well, let's say it's 18,000 with the header and the combine to lease times 3. You're looking at 2 is 36. So you're looking at $50,000, which is half of what even the small Rostel mash combine is worth. Plus, with the Rostel mash, the header is tiny, it's 5 meters. Not that this one's that much bigger at 6, but hang on. My advice is hang on to the combine. I really don't know why people tell other people to get rid of it. Secondly, whenever you're selling something, make sure you sell it, this is my next tip, at the shop. The Steyr is worth $70,000 if I was just to sell it through the garage. If we actually go to the shop and sell it, it's worth $76,999. So we're making an extra $69.91, $7,000 on it. Don't worry, like I said, the truck's not essential until you get into other stuff, and you can always use your tractor for that. It just doesn't get you around as quickly. But when you can make $40,000 and put that towards something else, well, you'll be able to afford another truck when the time comes. So that's my next tip. Always sell at the shop. Don't sell from the menu. Should you repair the vehicle before you sell it? Yes or no? That's debatable. I think you make a little bit more money. I haven't looked into it in detail. I see a vehicle that has a $3,000, let's say, repair bill. Am I going to get that $3,000 back? For the most part, yes, but I'm not going to get that much more back. So it's entirely up to you. Now, next tip. We're at the shop. One of the features of 22 is vehicle sales are back. So let's see what they have for vehicle sales. Okay, we don't need a header. We definitely don't need a silo compactor, especially as we got rid of our silage compactors. We got rid of that. Nope. Okay. It is very rare that I start a new game and I have a decent tractor at a decent price. Most of the time, it's either stuff I can't afford, like the cotton harvester, and at this point, we have no need for a cotton harvester because we are sticking to grain crops. That's another tip. Stick to grain crops. Oats, wheat, barley, milo, also known as sorghum, soybean, or canola. You have the equipment for it. You don't want to be renting or leasing the equipment to plant corn or cotton or anything else like that, let alone harvest it. So let me think for a minute. We're at $262,000 right now. Bear with me, this has kind of caught me off guard and I'm trying to do the math in my head. I was not expecting to see a Fendt 700 Vario for 56, well, almost 70% off, under 60,000. This tractor goes all the way up to 246 horsepower. So it is an ideal tractor to keep around the farm long term. We actually made more money back selling the Steyr and buying the Vario. We would still make, what, 20,000 profit? Now I'm just deciding what we need next. Remember, the name of the game is maximizing your crop yield. The better your crop yield, the more profit you make. So I'm just trying to figure out what we need. Obviously, we definitely need a fertilizer spreader. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. We have a seeder. We have a cultivator. Theoretically, we need a mulcher, and we need a roller, and we need a weeder. And I'll explain my logic for that in a minute when I've done the math on the best way to spend our money. I apologize, this is taking a little bit longer than I thought, but I was not expecting to have such a good tractor offered at a discount right off the bat. Like I said, I've seen bigger ones. I've seen a 9RT offered off the bat, a quad track. Nothing that I could use or afford at the beginning of the game, so I just normally skipped it. But this is definitely, if you have an opportunity like this, I would definitely consider taking it. Let me go ahead and buy the equipment that we need first, and then we'll look at the tractor. If that tractor wasn't for sale, it would be simple. I would have the Valtra, and I would have the Massey, and I would have $262,000 or $263,000 to play with, to buy equipment. I mean, more or less, we have everything we need already. We have a cultivator and we have a seeder. But like I said, it's about the yield, so we need things like a fertilizer. Well, we definitely need a fertilizer spreader. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. If you don't buy one of those, that is going into, actually I'm writing it down right now, it's going into one of my top 10 mistakes new players make. Okay, anyway, I'm going to go ahead and make a purchase list of what I need, and then we'll go through it. Oh, and for being so patient, I will throw in a couple of extra tips at the end, so it will be more than 10. Okay, so decision time. Decision has been made. We got rid of the Valtra, and I sold for $99,000. Now, just because this is on sale at its base configuration of 150 horsepower, yes, I have added wheel weights. I don't have to, if I couldn't afford it, necessarily go all the way up to 240 horsepower. I could do it later on at the workshop. I could go start with 188, and then I can add the extra horsepower when I needed it later on. But I can get for $7,000 more, I can get that tractor with essentially 60 more horsepower. It's newer. Yes, it might be used and it might have a few hours on it, but overall, this is going to serve me as a good utility tractor. Until I get to the point where I need big equipment. Which, for the farm we have, we don't need. We need 2 tractors, which we have. I'll go through what else I purchased, and we still have $135,000, so we've come out ahead still. We have a weeder. That's going to give us a bonus for the yield for that. A roller, that's going to give us a yield bonus for that. The mulcher is going to give us another yield bonus. And the fertilizer spreader. We have everything we need to give us 100% bonus. And we still have $135,000 to spare. Now, I got this fertilizer spreader. I know there are cheaper ones, and I know there are more expensive ones. Another mistake some people might make is this is $65,000. It doesn't do lime. This one does lime and fertilizer for $45,000. I could have saved and done this one, but what's the point of buying this one and then having to lease a lime spreader? I'm going to use the spreader at least twice a harvest. And I say a harvest as opposed to a season because you may have turned seasons off. And I'm going to use the lime once every 3 harvests. So to me, the extra $20,000 is worth the investment. And we still have some money to play with. And since we have a tractor with plenty of horsepower, I'm going to trade in my old cultivator for this one, because the old cultivator is, where is it, the garage? A whopping 2.5 versus 5 meters. So I get double the cultivator for $10,000. I bet I can get half of that back by selling the other one. So let me go ahead and purchase this one. Yeah, you can see it's used. It's got some scruffs and buffs on it, but I'm not too concerned. Alright, so that's done. That's everything we need. The only other thing we need that I would like if it was me optimally is a bigger seeder, because we have a very small seeder. I would like this seeder because it's 8 meters and we have the 240 horsepower to pull it. On the other hand, we could go with this one, which is 2.6 meters versus, so it's 2 meters less. It requires a little bit less horsepower. It does do fertilizer. You know what? That's a decision we can make at a later date. This isn't how to decide how to buy equipment. That I'm going to do in a separate video. This is how to get you up and running quickly. Now, I can also hear some people saying, well, what about mods? There are cheaper mods out there. Yep, there certainly are cheaper mods out there. But if you're fairly new to the game, I would avoid mods, because mods aren't always what they appear. I have downloaded several mods that I thought, worth taking a look at. And when I got them up and running, they were not what I expected them to be. Some of them have fidgety controls. There's a whole bunch of reasons. Until you get familiar with the base game equipment, I would avoid mods, with the exception of a few. And yes, I will put together a video of mods I recommend for, and I hate when they do that. It turns around the wrong way. I will put together a video, the top 10 mods I recommend for beginners. Anyway, let me get this all back to the farm, and then we'll go into the next 2 tips. I almost forgot, since this is used equipment, we need to repair it. Repainting is a total waste of money. I don't care if my equipment looks a little bit banged up like that. It works fine. You know what? Oh shit. Excuse my French. When I was growing up and we had the farm, and when I was working on the farm, equipment got used. That's what they sold rust inhibitor for. You sprayed it on the plow blades, the same as you would on the cultivator shears here, and it just stops it from rusting at the end of the season. Next tip. We're going to need to buy lime and fertilizer. And I know I've already covered this one, but don't buy the big bag pallets. If you look at seeds, they are $900 for a pallet, and a big bag is $800. So you save $100. We're going to need probably at least 6 bags of seed to do all the fields. That's $600 in savings. Doesn't sound like much right now, but again, it adds up quickly. Not necessarily one of my top 10 tips, but I would say do the work yourself and don't use a worker. I'm just doing a worker so I can get through this video as quickly as possible. My next tip, and I know many people will disagree with this, is don't be afraid to take out a loan if you need a piece of equipment on a regular basis. The loan interest, it is 3%. The leasing cost, not including any extra hours you put on top of it, just the initial leasing cost is 15%. So as long as you can make payments on a regular basis to that loan to pay it down, don't be afraid to take out a reasonable size loan. A $100,000 loan will cost you $333 a day, so you will need to find a way to make $333 a day minimum for that loan, but you will then own the piece of equipment. For this tractor, for the Valtra, that was worth, what does it come in at here? $62,000 with the engine upgrades. Even if I'd had to take out a loan of $50,000 at $150 a day interest, it would have been worth it, because I now have, it says there, I have a 250 horsepower tractor that I can use for all sorts of jobs. On my main Let's Play farm, my go-to tractors are in the 250 to 300 horsepower range, because they will do almost anything. I do have a couple of higher horsepower, but that's not what we're talking about right now. That's only when you get into big equipment. And for now, you only own 3 fields, so don't even think about getting the biggest cultivator in the game. Alright, and my final tip, and this is something you absolutely should do. In your menu, go down to the contracts, and you will see you have a variety of contracts. I would definitely pick up those fertilizing contracts. They are not too far away, and since your equipment is busy doing field work, you can go ahead and find out which one's the cheapest, $487. So I would go ahead and I would borrow the equipment from this one, since it's essentially all the same thing. Borrow the cheapest one and then use it to do all 3 fields. Nothing says you have to turn it in at the end of each field. So you'd borrow the equipment, you'd fertilize field 21, then you would fertilize field 18, then you would fertilize field 32, then go ahead and turn all 3 contracts in. Harvesting, I ignored a couple of these because they are too far, well, for me, they are way out of the way, and they're small little fields for $1,000, so you'd spend a little bit of time driving. So like field 12, I ignored it. I would definitely do field 37, which is right by your farm. And then I would do the spraying contracts. 42, 43, 46. 43, 42, and 46 is down here. And I just did the math off camera, and you would make $40,000. Let me double check that. You would make a tidy profit of $30,000 minus any labor costs should you choose to use an AI worker. We have $122,000. You add another $30,000 to that. That's $150,000. That's today. New contracts will pop up tomorrow. I wouldn't do it today because you want to build a buffer, or you could take out a small loan like I said. But doing those contracts, you got to save some money for the seed and the lime and the fertilizer we're going to need. But I would say a good 2 days worth of contracts and you'll be able to afford that really nice seed drill. And that would be your reward for doing all that extra work. Anyway, I hope you found these tips useful. Leave me a comment and let me know if you can think of any really good tips you have for beginners, or questions you may have as to why I did something. And we will see you in the next video, which is most likely going to be how to pick an tractor / equipment based on the size of your farm. Take care, and thanks for watching.